Deb, I'm a mess.
You are such a mess. Like, I feel like you always complain, like if I have a froggy throat, that you have to do these edits. You're going to be here till midnight doing edits of your own voice.
I started feeling sick late Monday, and I just assumed from having been in two fairly humid climates, Mexico and Baltimore, very similar climates, that I was now coming back to a far more dry climate, and so my throat was getting scratchy. Then I figured out on Tuesday morning, just kidding, you're sick. I have not had a cold in like 2+ years.
Well, I say all the time, like, listen, I hate wearing masks. I'm not an anti-masker, but, you know, they're just annoying.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful that we don't have to wear one like every day to work, when we're at home at least. But I firmly believe that a mask has kept me kind of healthy the last couple of years.
Well, I've worn a mask. It's not like I don't wear masks. I wear masks all the time.
You wear masks as well, but, you know, I think what happened is you went to Reno, Nevada, then you went to Acapulco, then to Mexico City, then to Reno, Nevada, albeit 8 hours, and then to Baltimore. It was just too much.
I don't disagree with any of that at all. But even then, prior to last year where nobody went anywhere, I still traveled a ton the year before, somehow did not manage to get sick. So it's like my body has said, hey, good on you, but you kind of screwed yourself over because now you're going to just eat it. The entirety of the last 3 years is manifesting in your face through your nostrils. Usually what happens is my cold lasts for like 4 days. I feel it on the first day.
Yep.
I'm plugged up on the second day.
Yep. Moves
Everything
to your chest.
moves to my chest on the third day, so I can like hack and spew and spit it out.
Yep.
And then on the fourth day, it's just whatever remnants remain. And then the fifth day, I'm good.
So this is my observation of being around you.
Oh, please.
You just got stuck in runny nose day. You can't move past runny nose day.
I am Booger City. I am the kid in elementary school who nobody wants to play with because they're scared they're going to touch him and get snot. You could touch his back and somehow boogers are back there. I'm Booger Ben.
Yeah.
They call me, nobody play with Booger Ben.
Yeah.
It's the middle of April and it's Booger Ben.
But it's really like runny nose Randy. I mean, it is, you're a mess.
Yesterday I thought I was good. I thought I took a turn. I kept just taking Mucinex and Sudafed and Tylenol and some illegal Mexican drugs. And what I won't do is I won't use that Afrin spray anymore. That stuff's bad for you.
That's a killer.
Like,
it's also addictive.
Anybody who's ever used Afrin knows, like, oh, that first hit is good,
No, here's
baby.
the deal on Afrin that I learned from the dancing
It's
doctor in
addictive.
Mexico. Well, no, he did say it's addictive. He also said it's very drying, like in a bad way. But when I thought I had COVID and he was trying to help me to just completely over-medicate myself to get myself home.
That means 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah. He bought the children's Afrin, which actually I have upstairs. And he said, use this. It's half strength. Nobody should use anything stronger. And he is right. So I'll get you some.
Hey, thanks for that 6 days later. But meanwhile, I woke up now on Sunday, and we've been dealing with this for almost a week. I have used an entire box of tissue. I have now made a run to CVS to get more medication. I've drank my weight in tea. Mm-hmm. There is nothing else I can possibly take, and my body just refuses to push this thing out. I am so unbelievably annoyed at myself. I'm annoyed at me. I'm annoyed for my immune system being such a beta cuck that it can't get out of this cold.
A beta what?
A beta cuck. It's a cuckold.
Oh, okay. I will say today was the day that I thought you didn't look well. I mean,
really?
Well, I mean, the nose is getting a little red.
Oh my God. From my nostrils to the bottom of my nose to the top lip might as well just be sandpaper.
And your eyes are like super shiny.
Oh, that's the meds. That's the copious amounts of drugs that I'm taking. And I know nobody even likes to hear somebody sick talk, but everybody's going to resonate with this. I'm at the stage where if I sit in this chair, I'm okay. But if I lean to the left or if I lean to the right, it's just a concrete plug in my nose. And like intermittently, every, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes, I get that like light tingle, like somebody's just blowing up my nose, just tingling the hairs. And so you just rub it. You rub it constantly. You're just constantly rubbing your nose. And then you're trying to stick tissue paper up in your nose. Makes you look like you have a bloody nose, but you're just trying to stop the snot from flowing for like 5 seconds. I hate it. I hate being sick.
You know what you need right now, Kev?
Drugs.
You remember when you were sick in Mexico? You need the Acapulco doctor.
The Acapulco doctor would be like, listen, I can fix you vomiting. Turns out that even in 2021, we can't fix the common cold.
I don't know, man. You never know. Good things are happening to people with colds in Mexico.
Oh, he would just slide me something that I couldn't read, and he'd be like, take care of this. There was a moment. Some people are probably saying, Kevin, how do you know it's not COVID? You traveled everywhere. I've taken so many COVID tests. I've taken so many COVID tests, have had so many things shoved up my nose that if for any reason they all became false positives, then there's a bigger issue at hand than me having COVID.
Hold that thought.
What are we holding for?
If you
Deb brought props.
If you want to take more COVID tests.
No, I've taken one of those.
5 are in here. So we have COVID test. He's fine, people.
I've taken that. I've passed all of my COVID tests with flying colors. Yes. I did get freaked out when all of a sudden we have a brand new variant that happened last week called like what Omnicore or Omnipresent or Omicron, some whatever Transformers name that was. Yep. You know what take has not aged well? Me proclaiming that COVID was over.
Yeah.
That thing has really come back to bite me in the butt tenfold. And then to be sick on top of it when I have an entire immune system full of a flu shot, full of 3 COVID shots. I can't even finesse my way around a cold anymore. And now COVID's looking at me being like, oh, you pulled on Superman's cape, dum-dum? You number one podcast host in the world. Watch me switch it up a little bit, South African style, and come start stepping on your face.
It's going to be bad. I think that I mean, who knows? I don't think we're going to go into lockdown again, but we're going into winter. It's the holidays. I think it's going to get tight and conservative again in terms of our behavior. It's close to home, that kind of thing.
Do you feel bad for me?
Oh, of course I feel bad for you.
How bad do you feel? Because honestly, and a lot of people say this about men when they get sick, that they're babies, that they're just terrible, horrible babies. Can you please let everybody know that I've been anything but a baby?
Okay, he has not been whiny really at all. This is the whine. What he's doing right here. This is the whiniest.
And this is just for content.
Yeah. And the biggest complaint I've heard is one day, and it was kind of in a joking way. You said, "I think I just need to wad Kleenex and stick it up my nose. I mean, just like breathe out of my mouth.
Totally.
And, plug it up." But you've been good. But I think you've been taking good care of yourself. You've taken it easy. You did try to go out, but you came home very early.
Yeah.
Because you didn't look like you lasted long.
I'll say this. There's a fad on TikTok.
Yeah.
People take raw garlic cloves.
Okay.
And they shove them up their nostrils.
That doesn't sound wise.
And they keep them there for at least like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And they take them out, and the amount of snot that pours
of course, because
out of their
they
nostrils.
Just put a foreign object and garlic up their nose.
But so my thought was, is it because the garlic is actually doing something, or is it because they have a substantial amount of snot that is just building up that, of course, once you unplug your nose, it's all going to fall out?
It's because garlic doesn't belong up your nose, Kevin.
But what if garlic helps me?
Okay, so should we...
I haven't taken any medication for hours, so I'm still lucid at this point.
So should we get fresh garlic, get a couple good cloves, jam them up there?
I don't know why I haven't thought about this.
And then 10 minutes later,
yeah,
I will film what happens.
I'm down.
Okay.
I think what we're going to do is we are going to be a TikTok account, which there are many of, that try to prove or disprove other people's TikTok takes.
Okay.
Triple T for short.
Yep.
And because I'm clearly in the throes of being sick and in no way having my mental judgment impaired
Yes.
with copious amounts of drugs that I've taken the last 5 days, I think it's only wise that we shove vegetables up my nose and see what medicinal purposes they can serve.
I mean, there's a piece of me that likes it. Let's give it a try.
Let's start the podcast. Hey, hi, hello, and welcome to the Deb and Kev podcast. Sitting right there, I asked her what doctor she wanted to be, and she said, Dr. Seuss. It's my mom, Deb.
I'm Deb.
And that's of no help to me because I'm the boy in the bubble. I'm her son, Kev, and this is our podcast. On today's show, that's it, and that's all in Merry England. We will recap the shocking finale of this season's GBBO, and in her business segment, Deb is going to talk with us about some end of the year things that you and your business should be doing. And we are back with more questions for Dear Debbie or Dear Deborah if you're nasty. And for an extra cost of $20, we'll custom wrap this whole thing up by telling you what's for dinner and what we are thankful for. But first, a quick programming note. Because the Great British Bake Off has ended, which we will do a review of coming up, we will now review Survivor on our Monday episodes. Thursdays, nothing. Mondays, Survivor. Does that make sense?
Thursdays will still exist, but Survivor will be on Mondays.
It's just pure Deb and Kev content on Thursday.
Love that.
Mondays, we're taking out GBBO and we're sliding in Survivor. That's the sliding thing.
Perfect.
But first, Deborah.
Yes.
Give us an update about Dad. For those of you who didn't listen to the Thursday Thanksgiving podcast, I did the Survivor recap alone. Side note, doing the podcast by myself, not as fun. There are elements that are cool in that I can just keep talking. The bad elements are when I stop talking, there's nobody else to fill the space. So the amount of edits I had to make where I'm just like, okay, and then they're talking about don't was very real. It was a lot.
I'm so happy that I serve a purpose.
You serve a massive purpose in having the banter. I need the banter. I listen to people who do shows by themselves, and even though the only segment I had was 10 minutes long, I have such a better appreciation for people who do radio shows or podcasts all by themselves because it is a heavy lift. I struggled for 10 minutes. They do it for an hour plus. But the reason Deb wasn't with us to do the Survivor recap is because she had to take my dad, her husband, to the ER because he was having some stomach, intestinal, just general well-being issues that everybody said, hey, it's Thanksgiving Eve. You need to see somebody. The easiest thing for you to do is go to the ER. He got the treatment that he needed, but Deb, fill in the gaps without crying too much.
I won't cry.
Okay.
I don't think I'll cry. So you did say, if someone is listening in order, you did say on that podcast, not to worry, he's going to be home tomorrow for dinner. Everything's going to be fine.
That's what I was told.
So he might have jinxed that part. So he still, as of this podcast, is not home.
No.
So he's been in the hospital the entire time. We went to the ER. It was pretty quick after we got there that we realized that we probably weren't going to bring him home that night at least. We did have that night hope for the next day. ERs, what an interesting experience.
It's
I just
really
can't tell you.
Creme de la creme of humanity at ERs at 8 o'clock on a Thanksgiving Eve.
You know, you would think that Thanksgiving Eve could be a safe time to go to an ER, but
Never.
alas, it's not.
I have a friend who's a doctor who works at an ER, and I won't tell you who he is, and I certainly won't tell you where he works, but oftentimes he sends some pictures to the group chat with nobody's personal information, and they're x-rays, of people, and he says, people just love shoving stuff inside of themselves, and it's everything you could have ever imagined that's ever been assembled inside somebody's body.
Yeah, that's not good. So we went for, I would say we went, Dad had lost a lot of weight very quickly.
Yeah.
But he wasn't eating. I mean, his appetite just waned terribly. And we were upset, and you kind of performed a little intervention, and we ended up getting him to the ER. And so they basically said, they did CAT scans and said, we want to keep you. And it was good they did, because I do think we were at a critical moment with him.
There was a tipping point, and the tipping point was probably going to take him down a bad road.
Yeah.
And we, with the help of a lot of nurses and doctors and PAs, were able to convince him to go to the ER reluctantly. But as you said, when you got in the car and immediately pulled out of the driveway, he said to you, this was the right decision.
Oh, I mean, the minute we pulled out of the driveway, and shout out to Shannon, the oncology nurse, who actually called 5 times and said, you need to go. Like, I just can't say this enough. And I know it's Thanksgiving Eve, and I know that that's hard, but you've got to go. And he finally succumbed to Shannon's good advice. So thank you, Shannon.
Thanks, Shan.
And so he's in the ER. He has some kidney malfunction, I'll call it.
When he went in, they tested his kidneys, and they said, surprisingly, for a guy who's got a ton of ailments, your kidneys are functioning extremely well. And I thought that was really bizarre, because we've never really talked about the kidneys prior to somebody mentioning that. And in the course of 48 hours, I think what was happening was he wasn't ingesting enough fluids. So when they watched his kidneys, they said, oh, they're doing a pretty decent job. But then when he got into his room and they hooked him up to an IV and they started encouraging him to drink more, they realized, oh, the kidneys aren't actually operating as well as we thought they were going to.
And so if you've listened to the podcast, we have a cancer issue.
Yep.
And now we have a he's not eating issue, which we seemed to treat him like a toddler, at least I do with that, insisting that it doesn't matter if he likes it. I mean, calories are calories. Please eat. And then this kidney issue popped up, and kidneys, as it turns out, are a vital organ. Like,
I read something somewhere that said
kidneys.
You need your kidneys to function. I thought that was a myth for a very long time, but I Googled it, and Wikipedia said, Kevin, you're wrong.
Kidneys are a big deal. So without going into morbid details, I would say the last 24 hours especially, he did have a surgery. They put some stents in both kidneys so that they drain into the bladder. I think that recovering from that has not been fun.
So as a man, speaking as a man,
yes,
and my father also confirmed male, the way they go
is the wrong way.
Is the wrong way.
Up a one-way street.
Like a wrong way, a train going into a child's classroom.
Yeah, I don't know.
Bad.
It was bad.
And so all the sympathy in the world to everybody, man or woman, who's ever had something go the wrong way, because yikes.
Yeah.
And he had to have it done twice.
Yeah. And so last night, all looked good. The nurse said, hey, I'm going to put you on the list of possibly going home tomorrow. All of his blood pressure dropped. All his blood values went up, to where they should be.
Yep.
They settled in at the right places. And then this morning, I called him first and really early, and he sounded terrible. How are you doing? Not good. I'm on my way. And as it turns out, all of his blood values dropped again. And so they're trying to figure out right now what's going on.
Right. And I think at this point, because we're recording this podcast a little later, I said, why don't they just put the catheter in this guy already? Because watching him go to the bathroom, because he's got the scientific term is a condom catheter on, watching him go to the bathroom with the condom catheter is like watching somebody just take a machete to their most private parts. It is not comfortable.
Horrible watching it.
And so I said,
no, we're not actually watching it.
No, we're not watching it.
But just watching him
and hearing him, it's not great. When you scream going to the bathroom, typically it's not a good sign. And I said, why don't they just do the catheter already? And you said, much to my surprise, that the body can become dependent on a catheter.
Yep.
So they want to make sure that they don't do it too early so that he's not beholden upon it for however long. And I'm thinking, like, I don't care what needs to, if I'm him, right? If I'm anybody, I don't care what needs to be said. I don't care who I need to lie to. At that point, I become an addict. I'm like, I'm so good. I'm so conscious. I'm so aware of this catheter in me. Every time I go to the bathroom, I'm going to know that I'm going to the bathroom. Please, God, just shove this tube inside of me.
Well, I feel bad for him. Like there's this procedure they're going through, knowing way too much about the anatomy. I don't want to be a medical person.
True.
Right?
Same.
But they want him like purposely go to the bathroom. So he does. And then they use an ultrasound to measure how much liquid is actually still in his bladder, which is kind of amazing, because they can tell to the milliliter or ounce or whatever.
They use the ultrasound to find out how much urine is in his bladder and to see if he's pregnant. And good news, he's not.
He's not pregnant.
He's not pregnant.
Exactly. And he doesn't even actually look pregnant either. He
doesn't have like a little, he doesn't have that distended little Buddha belly.
Doesn't have that. But he's holding on to an inordinate amount of liquid.
Yeah.
And so therein lies the problem. So right before the podcast, because we had come home to do the podcast and because we didn't want to be there for the insertion of the catheter.
Turns out there are still some things that are far too intimate to be around as a family.
Well, and we don't want to hear the, I mean, we just don't want to hear that. So I called and said to you, I'm sure the catheter must be in by now.
Yeah, it's been like an hour, yeah.
And so they'd given him some pain medicine before. And I said, how are you doing? And he goes, okay. I said, catheter in? He goes, no. And I was like, what? And he goes, well, they tried to put one in, but it wouldn't go.
So brutal. So freaking brutal.
And then he was like, I mean, he is such a sport, such a trooper. He goes, oh, it wasn't quite as bad as you would think. I mean, like, they're getting a different one. I mean, and I'm just like, oh, dear God, this poor guy. I just want him, listen, I want that catheter in and I want them to give him drugs and I want him to sleep tonight.
So many drugs.
Yeah,
he deserves so many drugs. Nothing to do with my father. So he has been in there since Wednesday evening. So a total of 5 days. Mm-hmm. We have had phenomenal nurses the entire time. We are so thankful for all the nurses and all the nurses who listen to this and all the doctors. All of you have been so wonderful. But there was this one nurse. And here's the catch. And if anybody has listened to this podcast long enough, you're going to understand where we're coming from. She was the rule follower nurse. Mm-hmm. The nurse who's working the oncology floor during COVID, where clearly people during the holidays, where clearly people are trying to be with their loved ones and make everything feel as normal as humanly possible as you can, being on an oncology ward in the middle of the holidays. Everybody else is letting you bring in food. Everybody else is letting you bring in drink. Everybody else, as long as you're in the room, is letting you take your mask off because we're family. We're all with each other. Right. He's in a room by himself. Yeah, there is nobody else exposed to us.
Yeah.
Every other nurse gets it. They get it. They understand it. They're on the oncology floor. Everybody is super nice to them.
And we didn't just blatantly break the rules.
No.
We asked.
Can we break the rules?
Can we break the rules? I mean, these rules are posted, but can we bring him food? Oh, of course, he'd much rather have Thanksgiving from your house than from here. I mean, can we bring him a drink? Yes, bring yourself a drink. I mean, can more than two of us come in? I mean, it hasn't been more than two, but on and on. I mean, we literally asked about all the rules.
And everybody greenlit it. And then this nurse, whose name will not be mentioned, her and Deb had the most passive aggressive back and forth, shirking responsibility, talking about like the invisible they or all that. It was so painful. It was so unbelievably painful because you like, well, let's look at the setting here. We're in a hospital room with a guy who's clearly suffering, and we're debating the merits of whether or not we can bring in outside beverage and food and wear our masks, which when the nurses walk in, we always put our masks on. And then she's saying, well, it's clearly, there's a clear signage outside on the board that says what you can and can't do. And Deb says, well, other people told us that we couldn't do that. She's like, well, they might have misinterpreted it or something. And I'm just like, oh my God, this female passive aggressiveness is too much right now.
Well, first of all, what we had was lattes and Yetis. That's what we had. I mean, it's not like we went carrying a ton of food in.
Yeah, we didn't go to Popeyes and get a 20-piece meal.
Which, by the way, one guy did, and I watched him carry it in uncovered because all the other nurses are letting him do it.
Yeah, and how about that one guy who was there last night who's a prisoner and the cops brought guns, huh? How about guns being in a hospital?
So right next to Daddy's room is a guy that has armed sheriffs in his room.
And I asked to play with the guns, and they got offended by that.
And if a bullet goes off, it's coming into our room.
Very sure.
And so there's that. There's been a little excitement.
But
about
let me say this. It's a very nice hospital that he's in.
It's a very nice
The
hospital.
guns are not indicative of anything.
No. And we love the entire staff. We only had that person for one day. I will say, after our little tete-a-tete, she was very nice the rest of the time. I mean, very, very sweet. But the rule thing.
Was tough.
Here's the thing. I'm under stress.
Yep.
Weird things. You don't know the thing that's going to do it to me. It's going to be
I know.
Unexpected.
I knew exactly what was going to do it to you.
But if there is somebody that's going to offer it up like that to me, I'm going to take all of my anxiety and stress out.
I will say this. If Dad's life were not in her hands, I know you would have acted 1,000% different.
Yeah.
You were far more subdued. But man, it was who's going to get the last word in? Who's going to be the last person to say something about this? It was very, very comical.
Not my finest moment.
It wasn't your worst moment.
You know, there you go.
Anything else? You good with that?
I think I'm good with that. I think we're you and I. Dad's oncologist has been out of the country. He's back. You and I have an appointment. We're going to keep Dad's appointment for him.
Yeah, we're going to go.
Because we want to talk to a real doctor who knows him and figure out what the heck's going on. Even all these hospital doctors have been terrific, but they're not his doctor. And so it's going to be interesting to show up at a doctor's appointment tomorrow morning without the patient. Oh, well, we'll see how that goes.
And we'll transition from a loved one being in the hospital to people baking. Deborah, it's already been 10 weeks. Can you believe it? It's been 10 weeks in the tent. We have lost 9 bakers, and the last 3 that remain are Chigs, Giuseppe, and Christelle. Deb has Giuseppe and Christelle. I only have Christelle, and the baker who's only been baking for 18 months, the quarantine baker, is Chigs. Going into it, how were you feeling?
Okay, I love the 3 of them so much.
Agreed.
I think I said to you when we first started watching it, if it's Chigs that wins, I'm great with that. Because I almost picked Chigs instead of Freya. Which would have been smart of me. I would have had the final
clearly
3.
In hindsight, sure.
Yeah. But, Freya and her little vegan thing, was just irresistible, honestly, at the time. But I think Chigs did such a great job of moving himself forward.
You said something. You said this baking competition comes down to who hits their peak at the right time.
Yeah.
And Chigs was incremental the entire time, incrementally just getting better and better, never went down, just was always going up. Giuseppe spiked really early and had to maintain that. And Christelle had a similar trajectory, though she was a little higher than Chigs along the way. But I think all 3 of those people were at the right level at the right time. And this wouldn't be a GBBO recap if I didn't mention the internet was a fury after Jürgen got voted off last week.
Oh, tell me about that.
People were calling him the GOAT. People were just beside themselves saying, so we're going to punish like arguably the greatest baker that's ever been in the tent because he managed to be best and technical, and the only things that you could say were like, the design wasn't that great. Like people were furious, absolutely furious.
Listen, you know that I wasn't a fan of Jürgen.
Oh, wait. Is that true?
However, let me say this. I'm glad that he had a fan base.
Massive.
For real.
I would say tens of millions of people.
They are producing a show. And I don't think GBBO is rigged. I'm hoping it's not. That's my, I don't want it to be.
Yeah.
But the only thing you and I did decide along the way is that, of course, Jürgen had room for improvement.
Yep.
And he really just kind of held it even.
I agree.
So, I can make the case that even he was supposed to do better. And it didn't feel, let's be honest, his design kept looking like his shirts.
What? I just don't get why you hate him so much.
I
just love my sweet little baby German. I
miss
you, Jürgen. I love you, Jürgen. Okay. It's the finale.
Yeah.
There's 3 people left.
3 nice people.
2 of them are Indian. 1 of them is Italian. What a great representation of 2021 England. I've never been there before.
It's not like some white person that's been there for 14,000 generations, right?
Racist against my German friend, Jürgen. For their signature bake, they needed to make an exquisitely decorated carrot cake. And when I heard this, I thought, softball much? Carrot cake in the finale? That kind of, I thought, what's the catch here?
Well, I don't remember which season it was, but there was something like with a carrot cake before, and maybe they had to be small bunts or something. I mean, it was something much more particular than this. And I can remember somebody, I don't know if this is absolutely true, but somebody making a remark that carrot cakes were an American thing, and there was a little
I think you're right.
A little around it. So I look mostly like I'm not really interested in super fine carrot cakes. I mean, fine, like really elegantly styled carrot cakes.
Yep.
I love a rustic carrot cake. You know, I mean, where there's stuff in it.
Yeah, you don't want finesse.
I don't want finesse, and I want that buttercream to be squeezing out of everywhere, you know. But they were, I mean, decorating was part of the deal on this thing.
True.
So they were going to have to lean in.
And aren't carrot cakes typically, there's no outside buttercream. It's buttercream on top, cake exposed, buttercream in the middle that kind of looks like it's falling out, and then cake on the bottom.
That's the one I love. And that's the one that's kind of the one we've always had.
Yeah.
But you do see carrot cakes, and I want to say, like in our neck of the woods, it's a casino carrot cake where it will be frosted on the sides, and then, you know, like frosted on the top and little weird carrots piped around it. And that the thing about that is usually that batter is not as thick and rustic. It's more like a fine cake batter that has maybe I don't know, not really shredded carrots in it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it's got shredded carrots in it, but it feels like, honestly, it feels like more of a garden cake.
Yes.
Right?
Like, exactly. More of a fine cake. Yeah.
My only note, other than the baking, was if I didn't love her enough already, I mean, Christelle being a fellow class clown, come on.
I looked at you and I said, go find her. This is your mate.
Yeah.
I mean, she's beautiful. She's funny. She's self-deprecating. And then we find out that she was the class clown at school.
They were doing all the interviews, and she said, you know, I had to be sat down by my parents and told that I couldn't just be goofing around all the time. And I was like, you are speaking my language 37 years later. So clearly that endeared me to her even more so. So the results came out like this. For it being what you and I perceive to be extremely easy, nobody hit it out of the park, like not even a little bit.
And you know, the thing is about this, Paul said to them, Paul Hollywood said, cool the cake and make sure the buttercream doesn't melt. He gave them the secret to it. And guess what happened to all of them?
Well, and here's another thing. So Christelle and Chigs baked their layers separately. And then Giuseppe baked his as one big loaf that he was going to cut into three. And you and I looked at each other like, that's the dumbest thing in the world.
The most ridiculous thing in the world. Like in the finale, don't take a risk doing that.
Yeah, I'm with you. So Christelle, they said, doesn't look like a typical carrot cake. So they didn't really like the aesthetic, but they said lovely flavor with well-balanced spices. Chigs, they said, looks very nice, though a bit solid and stodgy with good flavor, but almost a rubbery texture because he put something like 400 grams of carrots in there. It might as well have just been a big carrot. And Giuseppe, they said, attractive cake despite it melting with an absolutely delicious flavor, but a soft texture. So unlike Chigs, they didn't think he added enough carrots to it, that it had almost a traditional cake-like texture.
Well, didn't he do a fig jam, Giuseppe?
I think so.
I think he did a fig jam, and I think what they said between the buttercream and the fig jam and the buttercream melting a little bit into the cake, it was just all too soft.
Yeah.
It was too much.
So for the technical, they had to make 12 Belgian buns with sultans and lemon curd. Deb, educate us on what a Belgian bun is.
So honestly, when I saw, you know, when Prue and Paul sit at the table and have that perfect dessert, I looked at it and my heart and my head and my voice said out loud, that doesn't look like the kind of calories I would even care to bother with.
Nope.
It is, take a cinnamon roll without any cinnamon.
Right.
Take a cinnamon roll that looks a little undercooked, kind of too blonde.
Yep.
Roll it up with like not a lot of lemon curd, but I'm just going to say a hint of lemon curd.
Just a small schmear.
But roll it up kind of flattish, not like pop up like a cinnamon roll. And then put some sultana.
Sultana.
Sultana,
It's like
which
raisins.
is dried fruit or something like that. And then there's a little whirl at the top of a little frosting thing with a little maraschino cherry, which they don't call a maraschino cherry.
No.
I would never in my life order one of those anywhere.
Somebody would have to tell me this place does the best Belgian buns ever. Like traditional Belgian buns, not good. This place, amazing. Because I would look at that and honestly, I would think it looks like something Sam's Club would mass produce.
Yeah, like one of those things that should be in its own package, like badly packaged. Yep. And none of them knew what it was. And the recipe had 2 instructions.
True. That was it.
I mean, 2 instructions.
Brutal.
Make
the
Belgian
dough.
bones with saldana and bake.
So from worst to first was Giuseppe. They were like horribly overbaked.
Yeah.
Super dry. But they said the aesthetic was nice. I mean, he let them get black on certain points.
It was weird because he looked at them when they were golden, and golden was too dark. These things are really not, don't have color.
Yeah, you get just past the natural dough color to just being brown, like light khaki brown.
Yeah, very, very light. And so he let it they were golden. I mean, they should have pulled them out before then. And then he purposely let them keep going. Yeah. I don't even understand it.
That was weird.
But his looked, like they always do, uniform and perfect.
And then Chig's, he rolled his the wrong way. He rolled his hot dog style instead of bun style. So there wasn't as many layers in it. And so they said too small, too high, cut too thick, too chewy, too solid, too thick of dough.
So I felt like he probably made a damn good cinnamon roll. But
for sure.
It was a bad Belgian roll.
Everything was just to this, to that, to that. It was too thick. And then winning her very first technical of the season, even though it was 3 people, was Christelle. And they said an uneven aesthetic, but with uniform color and good lemon curd and tastes all right, which isn't bad for a technical where they only give you 2 instructions. So
at this point,
it's anybody's.
It was, and you could feel it on them.
I would say it's anybody's, and who I thought was in the rear was Giuseppe. And you said at some point, you said he's in his head.
He's in his head. Well, you could see it, that he was in his head and the things he was saying and everything. And at that point, I just felt like we were watching Giuseppe slide down the hill, never to catch up with the other 2. I mean, at that point, that's how I felt. And
so the showstopper came down to this: an outstanding Mad Hatter Tea Party display showcasing 4 different baking disciplines. It could be any design they wanted, but it had to have 4 different baking ideas, confections. It could be savory, it could be sweet, but they had to have 4 of them.
And they wanted it to be like very Alice in Wonderland, like cookie crazy, fun Mad Hatter Tea Party. I mean,
what I thought was weird? Nobody made a top hat.
Well, you know what I thought was weird? I remember I said to you that somebody's got to do like bold stripes and somebody has to do like a Harlequin thing. Yeah. I mean, I so vividly could picture what needed to be done, and nobody did any of that.
I also think I have Tim Burton's version of Alice in Wonderland in my head, but that fits the Mad Hatter aesthetic perfectly. Yeah. And everybody kind of went the opposite of that, which I thought was weird. And then again, I just thought it was weird that nobody actually made the top hat.
Everybody did kind of weird English garden.
Yeah,
kind of.
It almost felt like the Queen of Hearts is what they went after, and that's not what it was at all.
Yeah. So I thought we both said, as we saw the designs, we were both like,
yeah, it was a little disappointing. Yeah. Granted, they gave them 5 hours. They had to bake 4 different things. So, I mean, who are we to judge? Yeah. Other than
we do every week.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's what it boiled down to. Giuseppe was first, and they said simple but effective visual. They liked the shoe buns. They thought the muffins were delicious and perfect, literally perfect panna cotta, to the point that Hollywood ate the entire jar of it.
Yeah,
they
wouldn't put it down.
Raved about it. And here's the thing, panna cotta, I don't know that I care about panna cotta.
But you know what he did? He put what he did with the panna cotta, which I think was probably the key to it. You know how panna cotta is a little savory?
Yes.
Okay. it's kind of like a creamsicle. You know, we like a creamsicle because it's vanilla with the sweet orange,
True.
right?
Yep.
So he put a little tiny bit of mango in there at the bottom. Then he did the panna cotta and let it set. Then he put a little tiny bit of mango at the top. And I think if that panna cotta was made right, that what you got was that perfect creamsicle kind of thing.
Sounds
That's
good
what
now.
I think. Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
But his mushroom top, you remember that was
Yeah.
the feature thing? They raved about that. That was
True.
beautiful when they cut that.
Chigs, they said, impressive overall look and did a really good job with the execution on all of his different bakes and flavors. They really didn't have much to say. They weren't wowed by Chigs, but they really didn't have many faults with anything that he did.
The cards, like the playing cards
Yeah,
that
the
Chicks
cookies.
made were beautiful.
Yeah.
And I really, really think that if he would have, because remember he did, I think an elderberry jam with like black pepper or something in it, that they said it was like,
Can't taste those elements, but the concept and the taste, if we didn't know that, was still really good.
They were beautiful.
And then Christelle was hitting home run after home run after home run through the first 3 confections they tasted. And they said it's colorful and it's quite impressive. And of course, we know Christelle always brings the pizzazz, the aesthetic.
Yeah.
And then she fell flat on her face with that focaccia.
And we knew it. We called it.
She let it proof with half a gallon of olive oil.
She actually let it proof in olive oil.
And then she baked it in a Dutch oven with olive oil pouring on top of it to where it looked like she was just going to make fried bread.
I mean, I don't know, because if you ever have good focaccia, I mean, focaccia doesn't start out super, super oily, right? I mean, it's like obviously olive oil is used, but lightly brushed. And then, of course, I think when you use it and heat it and do things like that, you add more. But it doesn't live in olive oil prior to it getting to you.
And the end result was she served them dough.
Raw. She served them
straight
dough.
up dough. They literally did not eat it.
We knew that was going to be bad.
That was arguably one of the biggest misses I've ever seen on the TV show.
It was bad.
The fact that it was the last thing they ate in the finale was horrible. So as you and I are watching them debate, we're thinking to ourselves, yeah, this is Chigs, right?
Yeah, I did think it was Chigs.
Not only is it a great story that he's a quarantine baker, he's totally lovable, and he was pretty even keel throughout this rather tumultuous finale. And of course, I love that it's a closed set, so they don't have any friends or family, and everybody else who already got voted off is home, so they don't get to come back. So they have all of the hotel staff there cheering them on and loving on them, and they were there for 10 weeks.
I mean, by then they know those people
for sure.
really, really well. And I mean, when Matt thanked them for taking such good care of them, I mean, I just had this vision of like in the hotel restaurant, the girl that cleans their room is sitting having wine with them at night.
For sure.
They're all cloistered.
Yeah, because they're not; those people aren't going home either.
Right. And so I love that element of it. You know, I just think it's super sweet.
And much to our surprise, the winner of the cake stand,
Kevin, jumped out of his chair.
Couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Giuseppe, the Italian.
The guy, my guy.
Now
I'm going to go my guy.
Heir to a baking father. He won it. I don't know how he won it. I would have loved to have heard the conversations that led to him winning it. He felt rather unremarkable all day.
Yeah.
He came third in the technical. They weren't a real big fan of his carrot cake. They absolutely adored his panna cotta, but some way, somehow, the man with great hair and the beautiful Italian accent won the GBBO.
I will say this. He was as surprised as anybody, for sure.
1,000%.
And I have never seen anybody, and it's worth just watching it a couple times. That guy loved on the cake plate when they gave it to him.
I thought he was going to break it at one point.
Oh my God. He was rubbing it. He was touching it. He was loving on it. And it is such a sweet story with his dad. I mean, the background of his father taught him to bake and all of that. So all of that was lovely. I'm telling you, Chigs and Christelle seemed
jumped out of their
happy.
shoes.
We're thrilled that it was him. And then I don't know if you noticed, Paul Hollywood did say that on day one, he said to somebody, that's our winner.
Yeah, he tried something that
Yeah.
Giuseppe made and said, I think we found our winner. So
Yeah.
clearly that's biased against my German friend Jürgen,
Yeah,
and I don't
because
appreciate that.
Actually, that was the episode where Jürgen was star baker, so let's not forget that.
I think we can all agree. We will all see Jürgen again. We will all see Giuseppe again, and then Christelle is going to have a meteoric rise if she ever wants to have a career in television and food.
Listen, if Christelle doesn't get on her Instagram right now and start working it, and TikTok and all of that, she can be a social media gal that's just hitting it out of the park for sure. She's funny, she's lovely, she's self-deprecating, she's smart, she's all of it.
So until next season, GBBO and GBBO fans, we love you all to death.
We do. And congratulations, Giuseppe. And congratulations, Deb.
That's right. Deb, the big winner, 2 for 2 as it relates to picking the dark horses, even though she stole it from me.
But do you wait, they show kind of what happens afterwards.
Yeah.
And I love it that Freya and Lizzie are great friends.
Totally.
And they have done a road trip all over Great Britain, finding everybody.
Yep. And then they all had a big group meeting, and the only person missing was Giuseppe because he moved back to Italy.
Because he moved to Milan. Yeah. So, it really is a sweet, sweet story. That's what we love about GBBO. It just makes us happy.
It's true. It's good TV, positive TV.
Yeah.
Deb, you don't have to spend a long time talking about it. We've talked about it on this podcast before, but people who own businesses and people who are even thinking about owning businesses, there are some end of the year items that they should put on their checklist, that they should put on their to-do list. Help remind everybody what that is and how they should go about doing so.
So we are almost to December 1st. So we're down to the last 31 days and counting. And then whatever we do after that, as far as our finances for personally or for a business, count towards next year, not this year.
Terrifying.
And so I always recommend that somebody at least get their CPA or their financial advisor or somebody that they can trust on the phone and say, what can I do right now in the most legal way? What can I do right now to affect my taxes in the most positive way?
Right.
We don't want to rob the IRS of anything they deserve.
Do you hear that, IRS? We want you to have all of your money, and I'm not winking. It's just part of my sickness.
But if we can shelter money to a later time,
that's a good word.
Or if we can buy things that are needed now, let's not put it off. So for an individual, I'll just really quickly go through things. So if your tax situation looks like you're going to have to pay taxes for some reason, and instead you might want to make a donation somewhere, or instead you might want to buy something that could legitimately be written off on your taxes, or make a home improvement, or do something like that. If you have extra cash to do that, to offset your tax implication, you would want to talk to your CPA and say, hey, is this legitimate? And can I get it done before the end of the year? And can we count it for the 2021 taxes?
Could people also donate money to their favorite podcast?
We're a charity. At this point,
charity,
for sure.
Listen to what's happening in this house. We need as much help as we can get.
We are a charity. Maybe by not legal definition, but for sure we are a charity. For people who own big businesses, I'm sure are on this already, but for small businesses, and if it looks like you're going to end up with some cash that you're just going to pay taxes on, the number one thing to look at is, hey, is there equipment that my business needs that I could invest in now? Easiest thing to do, go get that stuff that your business might need that might help you do business better. The other thing is, if it's been a really good year, and 2021, I'll tell you, has been a great year for a lot of industries, right? And people have bounced back and done well. Is this the year we're coming out of COVID that I should give my employees bonuses just to share the wealth a little bit?
Totally.
But whatever you can do, to get this money, I'm just going to say aimed in the right direction so it doesn't have the most dramatic tax implication. You want to do that now because we really only have 30 some days left. I think what people forget is that if there's money left, it's not exactly that way with a personal account, but if there is money left in your account, as a business owner, you're really just going to get taxed at whatever your tax rate is. And so I'm not saying that you have to spend it all. You can also, there's investments. Go to your financial advisor
Oh, yeah.
and ask what you can invest, how you can invest it, how you can protect it to pay tax on that later on a different year when you don't have the income that you have now. But there's just so many good things that can be done other than it just going to the federal government. I mean, let's just be honest. And
it's not that we don't want to give money to the government, but isn't money more fun that you made it, you earned it, and then you get to decide what to do with it? Isn't that more fun?
It is a little bit more fun. Now, we do want the feds to get their fair share.
Of course.
Because we love like roads and bridges and things like that.
We love you, Uncle Sam.
But I'm just going to say they're responsible for their money. We're responsible for ours. Talk to your financial advisor, see where you can invest. Talk to your CPA, see what you can purchase, see what is a legitimate write-off for yourself personally, and if you have a business, for your business. Do it now. That's the end of my business segment, Kev.
It's your money. Make it work for you. Call the Deb and Kev podcast right now, and we'll give you our address if you want to send us money. Nothing else, only money. And it's a donation, it's a write-off. We'll start, what's the nonprofit called? Chapter what?
No, there's
211? What's it?
I don't know what it is.
We'll start the thing that a nonprofit
in fact,
is.
we're not.
And we'll fill out the paperwork just in time for you to give us all of your money.
You actually won't get a write-off from us. You won't get any kind of thing like that.
But you'll feel better about yourself.
But you'll feel better about yourself, and we will take your cash.
Deb's cried a couple times this week. Do you want her to stop crying? Do you want my mom to stop crying? Do you not love my mom? Give us money. Give us that money, please. I'm sick. I'm probably dying of Omicron, whatever the new variant is.
Omicron?
Omicron.
I don't know.
It's the transformer that was recalled. Omicron.
He didn't work with. He didn't unfold very well.
Yeah, he folded and pinched people's fingers.
He unfolded but couldn't fold back.
He was a very bad. Is it an Autobot? No, Autobot's completely different. He's one of the bad guys. I don't remember. I haven't watched enough Transformer movies. Are you ready for some Dear Debbie questions?
I am.
Dear Debbie, I used to work in TV production, and I loved my job. That's a lie. A few years ago, when the economy was down, I lost my job, and I have been floundering ever since. I now work with a temp agency doing clerical work. I hate this job, but I haven't been able to find anything else. I think my attitude is getting in my way. Because I really don't think I should have to be doing this, I sometimes get mad when my boss, whoever it is on the job, piles on lots of administrative work. I just don't like doing it, and I can get rather snippy. Or sometimes I don't complete assignments on time. I realize it's not because I have too much to do. I think it's because I resent having to do it. This probably sounds crazy, but I can't seem to shake my negative mindset. Any ideas?
I do have some ideas, and I have a comment about that.
Yeah, bro. You're in control of yourself.
A story that I have told possibly before, I'm not sure, because I can no longer keep track of what I've told on the podcast or in real life.
Welcome to our hell.
So I am probably like 22 years old. I'd worked many, many hours a week. My first job out of college, morning, noon, and night.
If I think you're going to tell a story you've definitely told, do you want me to just tell you to get to the end?
I'll get to the end.
No. Do you want me to tell? I don't know. I don't know yet. But if I think
free.
you've told it, I'll just say, give us the conclusion.
Okay.
Okay.
So I quit my job without another job. I mean, I was like him. I'd had it, you know. I don't have a job. Well, after 2 weeks of not having a job, you're like, I don't have a job. A friend of mine owned a temp agencies. Guess what temp agencies do? Administrative work for other people.
I know.
That's what it is.
There's red flag number one. Dude, you signed up for a temp agency and you said that they're just giving you administrative work. That's literally what the job is.
I mean, unless it's a temp agency for tech or something, but it was just a temp agency. So my friend says to me, because I just quit a good job.
By the way, I've never heard this story, so keep going.
And I had a college education, right? And my friend says to me, so, do you type, Deb? No, I don't type. I mean, like type, right? She said, do you know how to do a 10-key ad machine? Nope. I mean, I'm sure I can do it.
By the way, you've definitely told this story, but it's still funny. Keep going.
Okay. And so she finally goes, do you know the alphabet? That's what it came down to. My college degree came down to, do you know the alphabet? Yes, I do. She goes, I've got a job for you for 2 weeks. And I thought, okay, great. Walk into an insurance company. Now, I had just come out of retail, women's wear. I walk in wearing heels and this tight little pencil skirt and a really nice blouse with a leather jacket over the top. And this is like a conservative insurance company. And the guy comes over and he's the vice president of marketing. He goes,
slaps you on the butt, says, welcome to the team, Deb.
Exactly. just about what happened. But he says, hey, we've got a bunch of filing over here. Now, this is an entire wall, a bank of filing cabinets. And in those days, they used to file tissues. It was a copy on a carbon. So, I mean, it's piles and piles. And I was like,
we've definitely heard this story.
Holy hell, this is the worst job in the world.
Yeah.
I flip my shoes off. I flip my jacket off. And I'm like, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to organize their stuff. And I'm going to get the hell out of here with a smile on my face.
And never coming back.
I finished 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks. I finished at the end of the first week. Their files are organized. I've taken everything out. I've cleaned them. I've put the new ones in. It's done perfect. I said, hey, can you sign my thing so I can go? He says, well, you finished a week early. I was like, yeah.
I'm good, bro.
Like, I'm good. Thank you. And he goes, hey, we're looking for somebody permanent. Would you like to interview for the job?
Nope. Thank you.
Well, it wasn't that job, of course, but I did interview for the job and I ended up staying there. And I will tell you, I was at that company for, I think, 7 years total. And I had career advancement like I never dreamed of. So guess what? Pull your panties up, quit whining, change your attitude because they're looking for potential employees.
Yeah, and dude,
do the right thing.
You are working a job you hate, so you're refusing to go what? Work in TV again?
So like you're mad at who for what?
Yeah,
like this is all on you.
What are we supposed to do with this information?
Yeah.
You quit your job. You started doing temp stuff in jobs that you hate doing temp work. And you're hating what you've chosen to do, and you're taking it out on the people who are hiring you?
Quit looking at the work that you're doing. Look at the company you're working for. Impress them.
I've been sick for 5 days, dude. I would love to be healthy and filing paper, okay?
And Kevin's not complaining about it very much.
No, you'll never hear me complain about being sick.
He complained on the podcast today more than
you will
he's
never hear me
all.
complain about being sick, okay? Because I'm a man and I put my boots on and I come to this podcast, which is nothing more than 10 steps from my bedroom every single week, twice a week.
Yeah.
And I'm sick,
We have no
but I'll never complain about it.
We have no sympathy for this guy.
What an outrageous thing to write.
Yeah,
As
I
if
agree.
anybody was ever going to take your side and be like, well, you know what, bud? I get that you're pretty mad
Yeah.
with this self-inflicted wound.
Also, let me just say this. For the time of my life right now,
Totally.
I'm going through this
A
question.
lot of
coming
anger.
up.
A lot of anger.
Like, I look every day for an innocent person to take it out on.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I hope
You know.
everybody's laughing and not be like, should we call Deb and Kev to make sure they're okay? Dear Debbie, I've been on my job for less than a year. Recently, I was asked to apply for a position that came open. Weird.
Yeah.
It stretches my abilities, but I was up for it. I've been doing okay for the most part, and I have received a lot of encouragement. There's one woman, though, who is constantly belittling me.
Always one.
She seems to go out of her way to find negative things to say about my job performance. She is never encouraging, and it's upsetting. Another one of the leaders in the company who is very supportive of me suggested that I speak to this woman and tell her to quit bullying me. I'm nervous to say anything. I would rather just not stay in this job than to have her always going out of her way to poke at me. What should I do? Thunderdome, fight her.
So Thunderdome, fight her. Well, I would fight her for you right now, just because.
Yeah,
it
honestly.
would get rid of some of the angst in my life. Do you think it's a girl that wrote that?
Sounds like it.
Okay, so I just want to make one management note that's a problem. When a management manager says, "Tell her to quit bullying you,"
Yeah.
we have a problem, manager. That's your job, okay?
Yeah, and I don't think this email was written in the 80s or anything. I think it was relatively soon. So it's a manager saying, thanks for coming to me with this. Now go deal with it yourself.
Yeah.
Not a great managerial
Especially
tactic.
that would be like hostile work environment,
Yeah.
bullying. There's certain words that managers should deal with directly. So that's number one. But since the manager didn't write in, what are we going to do? You know, here's the thing. There are obviously people in that company who have faith in this person and think she's doing a great job. You know, she has a little self-doubt, which was, you could see in the way that she wrote, you know, the email. What needs to happen is this needs to be, I don't care about her. She either needs to confront her and put her in her place. And like most bullies, they fold, or she needs to not care, because it sounds like she has a nice cadre of supporters.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's hurting her is her own self-doubt. So, you know, 3 steps into adulthood, either take care of it or don't. I don't really care what you do, but if you don't take care of it, let it go.
What do you think about just like light vandalism to the woman's vehicle?
I think like that might lead somewhere that wouldn't be good. So
What okay, fair. That's destruction of property. What do you think of just like pranks that you're pulling on this woman to endear her more to you? You're like, well, I put the whoopee cushion down, but I didn't know there was a bunch of tacks underneath it.
Okay, so that could be physical harm, but I mean, if like
Clearly, there's some leeway in this company,
if
though.
you knew she was going to the bathroom, for instance, and then you went over to her computer, which was still up and on,
And you went to the bathroom on her computer?
no.
Oh, okay.
And then you just hit delete for everything you could find. That would be pretty funny.
If anything, that's a teachable moment because
Right.
she should have saved everything.
She should have saved everything, and she technically, if she walked away,
Yeah.
should have clicked off.
I also think there's merits to just fighting her in the office space.
I want to say, I think arm wrestling
Totally.
with people laying bets
Yes.
down. Yep. I'm
Here's
with
how you
there.
confront it. You say, hey, I'm just assuming this woman's name is Kim. Kim, I've heard that one of the best things coworkers can do is get into an arm wrestling competition with one another, simply playful, only a good time. She then does like forearm strengths, goes to the gym, works out, and then when Kim, who's clearly older and probably out of shape and just hates her life, thinks she can out arm wrestle her, let's just call this woman Sarah. Sarah death grips Kim's hand and then
just decimates
from
her.
like Sylvester Stallone over the top, snaps her wrist, bringing it down on the table. Now she's asserted herself as the alpha, and Kim will never mess with Sarah ever again. That's a good one. You guys might want to write that one down.
Okay, we're not going to break Kim's arm. But
Well, we're not, but
listen,
Sarah might.
Sarah has to either let it go
Yeah.
or confront it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, or arm wrestler.
Or arm wrestler. Yeah.
I have two more, but I'm going to do this one instead. Dear Debbie, in less than 2 months, I'm to be an attendant in my best friend's wedding.
Isn't there a movie called that?
Deb, there's just one problem.
Okay.
I'm in love with the groom.
Oh, no.
For the last 18 months, we have been attending the same school. His fiance lives far away. In my opinion, he and I are perfect for each other.
Oh, no.
We make each other laugh and we have so much fun and we have so much in common. This isn't just a crush, and I can't imagine life without him. Sometimes it seems like he has feelings for me too. He makes comments that make me think he's torn between her and me. Should I tell him how I feel or keep my mouth shut and fulfill my role as bridesmaid in the wedding? Please help. First question. She's the bridesmaid of
Their wedding.
the other fiance?
No, the bride and groom.
I get that, but
The
like
guy that she has the crush on. She's the bridesmaid in his wedding.
But like, you know how sometimes in like modern day culture, you can have a female on the man's side?
Yeah, but she's on the woman's side.
So she knows the other girl.
Yeah, she knows the girl for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
No, she's friends with the girl.
So it made it sound like the girl was kind of like an abstract,
Oh, you
not
thought it
present in
was-
her life.
You thought it was like the Cameron Diaz, Julia Roberts one.
Yeah, like she didn't know the girl
Yeah.
getting married, but she still
Yeah.
loved the groom.
No, I think it's the Kate Hudson, Gina Goodwin one. Do you know that
It's
one?
Gina Goodwin.
You know Gina Goodwin, the cute little girl. She was one of the wives in Sister Wives movie.
Sister
Not
Wives.
Sister Wives. What was it called? Big Lies.
First Wives Club.
No, Big
Oh.
Lies.
Big Little Lies.
Big Little Lies.
Which one's she?
The cute one with short, dark hair. She had long hair in that one, but she's got short, dark hair. She's super cute. Gina Goodwin? I think that's her name. Look her up.
Okay, give us the advice.
Okay, so
Gina Goodwin.
first of all, you're with this guy. It sounds like a lot.
A lot.
And he had a chance to make a move on you. He had a chance to express his love.
Jennifer Goodwin.
Jennifer Goodwin. Okay. You know
I
who
would have
mean?
never placed this woman, and she was definitely not in Big Little Lies.
Yes, she was.
Big Little Lies was Nicole Kidman and
Oh, not Big Little Lies. What was the one that was? It was like the Mormon, but not Mormon.
Big Love.
Big Love.
Big Love.
Big Love.
Big
She
Love.
was in
Got
that.
it.
Yeah.
Continue.
So, anyways, this guy had a chance to make a real move.
Totally.
So that this girl wouldn't be saying, and I think maybe, guess what? I think maybe no, because he's marrying the other girl and he hasn't professed his love for you. I think maybe you have a big crush and you're going to ruin everything if you say that or do that.
Here's my favorite line. He makes comments that make me think he's torn between her and me. Is he so torn that he's not going to go through with his marriage? Because it looks like that's going to happen.
What I kept waiting for, and one night we were skating and had too many drinks and he kissed me.
That would have been.
That's what I was waiting for. That didn't happen.
Nope.
This is like, he's probably just a darling, charming guy.
Yep.
And he's a good friend to her. And it's sad. I mean, people can fall in love with people, unrequited love. It's sad.
In matters of the heart, the best thing to do is actually be as practical as humanly possible. And I'm
Which is almost impossible.
Totally. Yeah. But I'm a list guy.
Yeah.
And if you just start listing the things that he's done in relation to you and the things he's done in relation to her, you'll find that her list is infinitely bigger than yours.
For sure.
And you putting your emotions on him that you think are being mirrored back to you, oh girl, that's like the worst thing you can do.
Plus here's the other part of it is he, as far as I'm concerned, from what she told us, hasn't given her a real sign that he's interested in not proceeding with his impending marriage, right? He has not done that. So for her to finagle herself in there now, it's wrong. In terms of right and wrong, it's wrong. It's wrong to do. She's a friend of the groom and she's a friend of the bride. It's just wrong.
If you think that you are going to be justified or on the right side of confessing your love to this guy, don't. Like that is your cross to bear. That is your burden. You in no way get to interject yourself into something that has nothing to do with you.
And I want to tell you this, even if she did it and for some crazy reason he picked her, there is no guaranteed happiness there. It is, I mean, that
should be actually a red flag too.
She will be remembered forever for that move and that's the stuff that people say, hey, 20 years later, did you know? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a character thing. Don't do it. Your guy will come. He's out there. He's waiting for you. You can't see him because you are distracted by this bright and shiny thing in front of you. Let it go. Let it go get married.
The only thing that you could possibly do is show up at the wedding with your gay best friend, say that he's your fiance, and then at the rehearsal dinner, break out into a Diane King song where everybody then starts singing and dancing around you, and you two become the focal point, and then hopefully he'll realize that you're better. He gets jealous of your gay best friend, and then
the whole Julia Roberts
don't
thing.
ultimately end up together.
Yeah. But that's only in movies, Kev. It doesn't really work.
I mean, but give it a try.
Yeah. Okay.
Just try it out.
I think we gave some good advice
I think
today.
Between arm wrestling and asking your gay best friend to be your fiance, it is spot on. Again, this is just satire. Nobody can actually use anything we say on this podcast. Deborah, let's wind this whole thing down by telling me what's for dinner.
Well, I'm going to tell you exactly what's for dinner.
Yes.
Last night, what did I do? When you weren't around,
I don't know. What did you do?
I broke down the turkey carcass.
Oh, that's right. You did.
And I threw part of it in a pot and part of it in the Instant Pot. And you were getting turkey and wild rice soup.
It's so good.
Because that's what you need.
It's so good. I actually had bone broth at the beginning of last week, thinking that was going to heal me. I think I waited too long. I should have had it one day earlier. Then the healing blend of bone broth would have actually crushed the cold and the Omicron COVID variant that lives inside of me.
We've had
maybe.
Bone
I don't
broth.
think so.
I mean, I will say at the time I felt like it was an excessive amount of bone broth, but
I've consumed a lot of bone broth.
You've consumed a lot of bone broth, but I feel like it has tipped you back from the edge and made you whole pretty fast, almost like magic Mexican medicine.
I need bone broth that I take with magic medicine from Mexico.
Yeah.
We call that 3M. I need the 3M with the bone broth, and your boy will be right as rain.
Well, we'll start with the wild rice and turkey soup.
Or wild turkey. Booze could work too.
Maybe a little wild turkey, yeah.
Deborah, we have actually a ton of stuff to be thankful for this week, but what are you thankful for?
Okay, so I am...
Without crying.
I was super sad that we had to take Dad to the ER.
Yes.
That felt like such a big move. It was huge. It broke my heart. I cried. I came home at 3:30 in the morning. I drove all the way home only to find out that I left my phone and my cord in the ER to drive all the way back. There's nobody out, as it turns out, Thanksgiving Eve at 3:30 in the morning.
The only people that are out are home from college partying their faces off.
It was sad to me. I cried almost all the way in the car. It was terrible. It was sad that you and I did sit down and have Thanksgiving dinner, and Dad's place, there was nobody there.
We just lit a candle and put it in Dad's chair. We didn't do that.
But here are the bright spots.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to mention again, not the mean nurse, but all the really nice nurses and doctors and PAs and people that took great care of us.
Yep.
And I want to say extraordinary people. That was one. Number two, on Thanksgiving Day, when I went to the hospital, I came back and the front door was open and I could smell this beautiful scents. Kevin had everything in the ovens cooking, including the turkey. He had decorated the entire house from top to bottom with all of our Christmas decorations. I didn't have to do one single thing. The tree was up. It was lit. All the ornaments were on it. He had Christmas music playing. He had candles lit. He had put doTERRA Joy, which is the Christmas scent, in the diffusers.
Oh, yeah.
It was incredible. And so I am so grateful for that.
Let me just add something to the story real quick. So I had all the windows open because it was a really beautiful day on Thanksgiving, despite all the stuff that we were going through. So I had all the windows open. I had the front door open. It was getting a little warm in the house. I was sick. I was wearing sweats, and I was setting up Christmas by myself. So I wanted to open the front door. And I thought, well, it'd be fun if she walked in as a surprise, but cool that she'll see it and she'll give me all these praise and accolades. So she pulls up and she walks through the front, up the steps, and I'm waiting for a Kevin. Oh my gosh, you're so sweet. And she looks at me and she goes, "Hey." And I'm like, hi.
My back was to most of the decorations.
And I was like, oh, this is it. Like, okay, like clearly she's just visiting Dad in the hospital. That's fair. A little bit of a bummer that she's not super impressed with what I did, and then she's like, "Oh my God." And that was what I was looking for. My ego needed that in that moment.
Well, I will tell you, dragging out all of the Christmas decorations and putting them all up.
It was bad.
It's a lot.
And
it's like, it was literally like somebody waved a magic wand or snapped their fingers and it made Kev, seriously, it made somebody, I sent a picture of it to somebody who said, it made a dark day as bright as can be.
Oh,
and
good.
That's what it did for me.
I was sitting there debating whether or not I should do that. And I just said, dude, you want it just as much as she would. So go set it all up.
You did a great job.
I'm happy to have done that. I'm happy that I'm your thankful.
Thank you, sweetie.
My thankful is I was able to spend yesterday afternoon with a bunch of friends for a Friendsgiving / 1930s themed murder mystery. And we were all given characters to play beforehand, and I was Irish. I was Irish Dr. Pathologist. And you are given clues throughout the evening about who's murdered, how they're murdered, where they're murdered, backstories about who knows them, who doesn't know them, who's good with them, who's possibly had an affair, all these great things. Kudos to my friend Rob and Bev for having us. The theme was so much fun. They did a great job of organizing the evening. And in true crime, it's always the doctor. I solved my own murder. I, Dr. Pathologist, solved my murder that I murdered somebody and then I solved my murder.
You were the murderer.
I murdered.
And so did you kind of confess?
I think what happened was I had deep amnesia.
Yeah.
Or in a fit of rage, I killed Reed Music, was his name. I killed Reed Music because what had happened was I had given him medication that he did not respond well to. And then he reported me to the medical board and they had my license revoked. So then I had to go into business with Moolah in her dentistry program. And I heard Reed Music was trying to sabotage our business. So while nobody was looking, I snuck out of my cabin, went into Reed's cabin, stabbed him in the back of the head with an umbrella as I'm off to do, and then circled back into my cabin. And I forgot all about that until I remembered because a prize was at stake and I won a small child's WWF t-shirt with matching belt and a crazy inflatable arm man that you can put on your desk.
Kevin, I don't even know what to say. I do want to say that you did look like a dapper dandy.
Thank you.
With your outfits you wore.
The 30s are a very, very weird time to find fashion. The 20s, it's all Gatsby, right? 40s era, you kind of get into the greasers, but 30s is weird. So I just Googled 1930s men's fashion, and I found they called it beachwear. Mm-hmm. It looked horribly uncomfortable because the gentleman was wearing socks during his beachwear. But I tried to mimic it perfectly, and I think I did a great job. I did not win Best Dressed, but I was just happy to be comfortable there, and I was happy that I brought myself to justice, and my thankful is that I got to spend time with all of my great friends who had a wonderful evening, and we all laughed and made jokes and had a great time.
That's perfect. That is a perfect grateful, honey.
That was a perfect grateful. Is there anything else we need to talk about? I feel like we haven't done a Monday podcast together in forever. Are we missing something?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that's what we did. We did dinner. We did our gratefuls. Yeah.
Can we point something out here?
Yes.
Deb, not a single edit.
We didn't cough. We didn't spew.
I have a whole box of tissue here.
Were you, because we both just ate pumpkin cheesecake with freshly whipped cream on it?
You whipped that whipped cream.
I whipped that whipped cream. And as I was eating it, I thought, cream cheese and whipped cream.
Not the best for the throat.
Yeah.
What I think is there was a point halfway through this podcast where the sugar kicked in.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we went from we're okay at 5 to 9.5. I think my Sudafed kicked in too. I'm feeling real good.
I will say this. We have gotten so many nice notes from people about Dad, and I'm grateful for every note. People can inquire. We are not secretive about this stuff for the most part. We appreciate that. We'll happily share anything. And we appreciate all those people that are thinking good thoughts and saying prayers for us. It means the world.
And our biggest thankful is all the friends and family who have surrounded us in this time and have made us feel loved and appreciated. And we send that back to you all tenfold. True?
Absolutely true.
That is going to do it for this Monday's episode of the Deb and Kev podcast. Remember to like, rate, and review wherever you listen to this podcast. And if you want to see a flawless podcast with no edits, follow us on our social channels at Deb and Kev Pod. And you can watch this sick performance at our YouTube channel at Deb and Kev Pod. And I've just been staring at this one left nostril that's bright red in the camera. And I'm thinking oh man, that's just classic Booger Ben.
But you haven't.
That's just classic Booger Ben.
Guess what you haven't done, Runny Nose Randy?
What's that?
You haven't sniffed.
Not once. There was one point where I had to mute my microphone and I shoved some Kleenex in my nose while you were talking. But other than that, it's been flawless. Mom, I love you to death.
I love you, baby.
We'll see you guys on Thursday.
Thank you for listening to the Deb and Kev podcast. Remember to like and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast. Follow Deb and Kev on Facebook and on Instagram and Twitter at Deb and Kev Pod.